Hey guys, it's Dean. For those of you that are new around here, I started this retrospective last year and the goal was to cover the Mario Party titles that would eventually lead us up to Super Mario Party, where I'd give a proper analysis of the Switch title and discuss to what extent it was a return to form. Whether we fall along the line of individuals that believe Super Mario Party was amongst the best party game, or view it as just another slip by ND Cube, it needs to be acknowledged that upon the release of Super Mario Party, it had been over a decade since there was anything that remotely resembled a traditional Mario Party. It was a total coincidence that somewhere along my retrospective, Mario Party Superstars was announced and released on the Nintendo Switch. I won't spend too much time discussing Superstars since I intend on making a video on that title next, but it's going to be almost impossible for me to discuss Super Mario Party and its accomplishments and shortcomings without inevitably viewing it through the lens of someone that's played Superstars. Heck, it's hard enough to attempt to analyze this game without comparing it to the Hudson Soft titles, even though those came out over a decade before it. But I guess that's what makes this a retrospective and not a review. I'm not sure what the statute of limitations for calling a video a retrospective instead of review is, but I'm gonna say it's 3 years so the title makes sense. Additionally, if I was covering this video earlier last year before spending all these months running through all the games in the series, I probably would have a different opinion of the game, and I'd probably approach it in a much more standalone review. But alas, this is the 12th title I cover in depth for this retrospective, and it will be treated as such. Although I do recommend that you go back and watch all my previous Mario Party videos so that my views for Super make more sense to you, I'll do a quick recap in case you don't have, about 5 or 6 hours to spare. I find all Mario Party titles to at the minimum be a fun experience. None of them are objectively bad, some of them are worse than others, and some titles give you more reason to return to them. Looking at the minigames alone will make every Mario Party title seem like an amazing experience, as I believe there hasn't been a single title that didn't have a vast majority of good minigames. With that in mind, the whole focus of my retrospective has been comparing general board play with a brief look at the minigames. Also, I don't usually look at the extra modes. While extras are nice and in some games provide a ton of hours of play, they're not the focus of Mario Party and not what people generally go back to older titles for. And honestly, I have so much to say about the boards and game mechanics that if I was to give the same treatment to the extra modes in these games, I doubt I'd have a single video shorter than an hour long. With that out of the way, here's my quick recap. Mario Party 1 is really brutal, and that brutality makes it very enjoyable to go back to if you enjoy watching a game screw you and your friends over. Mario Party 2 is my favorite for nostalgia purposes, and also because I like the costumes. I think it adds a ton to Mario Party 1 but doesn't overdo it. Unlike Mario Party 3, which in my opinion overdoes it. It's still as good as number 1 though, and I do recommend playing 3 with your group of friends if you ever get bored of 2. Mario Party 4 had a lot of potential but completely dropped the mushroom with the over-reliance on the Mega and Mini Mushroom gameplay mechanics. Mario Party 5 seems to be hated by a lot, but for me it sits under Mario Party 2 as a favorite of mine. I don't mind the capsule system on it, and it's the first game since Mario Party 2 that has good boards. Mario Party 6 doesn't stick out to me as this perfect Mario Party experience like it does to most. While the day and night mechanic is cool, it's largely overrated in my opinion, and doesn't do enough to justify what I consider relatively weak boards. The game does do a very good job with the item system, however. For me, it sits just under Mario Party 5 in my rankings. Mario Party 7 is, in my opinion, the best Mario Party experience. It gets a lot of hate for Bowser time, and similar to the day and night mechanic in Mario Party 6, I think it's blown way out of proportion. It takes the Mario Party 6 orb system and puts it on a better board, while also providing the best minigames in the series up to that point. It also adds an admittedly watered down 8-player mode, which can be a ton of fun in the right setting. Mario Party 8 was a ton of fun when it came out as the first motion-controlled Mario Party title, but going back to it now is archaic because the motion control implementation was lackluster and it has some of the worst boards in the series. There's a lot of nostalgia amongst the fans for this game because it was on the Wii, but the boards and general gameplay mechanics kinda stink, and even if Koopa's Tycoon Town was as good as everyone says it is, it's not enough to save the game. 8, in my opinion, is dead last with Mario Party 4. Mario Party DS is great for a single-player adventure, but the miniature size of the boards makes it lose a ton of its appeal. For proper Mario Party fun, I'd rather play almost any other game if it means huddling around the TV with my friends. Not a bad game, just a weird way to play a handheld party game for me. Mario Parties 9 and 10 are just fine. They aren't nearly as bad as people make them out to be. The issue is they were literally the only 2 console games released over the span of a decade, which made them look way worse than they were. Do yourself a favor and try them out again with your friends if you get a chance. They're a lot more enjoyable now that we've played Superstars. I recommend watching my video on these titles so you can get a proper breakdown of my defense of them, and why I believe they're not nearly as luck-based and soulless as everyone makes them out to be. Although I didn't make a video on them, Mario Party e-reader is barely a video game, Mario Party Advance is only a Mario Party game in name, Mario Party Island Tour came out between 9 and 10 on 3DS and tried something new and ultimately failed. The boards had a few new ideas, but each of them ends up falling short for one reason or another. I'd actually love to do a video on why Island Tour stinks because I think the reasons I dislike it are different than why others dislike it. And since it actually has multiple boards, I could do an actual board analysis. I'll leave it to my patrons to decide if I should cover Island Tour. Oh yeah, I have a Patreon now. Link in the description. It's nothing major at the moment since I'm still new to it, but you get a shout out if you sign up. If I get enough people to sign up, maybe I'll do a poll for Island Tour or another game in the series. Anyway, after Mario Party 10, NDCube released Star Rush, which is okay at best, but the whole concept is what Partner Party is based off of, and I'm not even sure I consider that an actual Mario Party game. And then to continue the trend of ruining the series, they released Mario Party The Top 100, which was everything anyone ever wanted, until they decided not to include any game boards and threw it on the DS for good measure to really make sure we understood the extent of their incompetence, in case it wasn't clear at this point. So basically, after DS we got 9, 10, and the 3 3DS titles, and then finally, we saw a trailer for Super Mario Party. And it caused us to smile for the first time in a decade. There were actual boards, players moved individually, you could buy stars, you could steal coins, you could do seemingly everything you could do in the old days of Hudson Soft. There was a lot to be excited about. And I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. The hype carried on well into release, at least the way I remember it from both opinions online and with my group of friends. Everyone was having a blast, and as a result we were overlooking the shortcomings. Like, oh, it's no big deal, they're only making us control the Joy-Cons, it makes sense. Or, I know the boards are small and there's only 4 of them, but that's fine for now, I'm sure they'll add some proper DLC later. Spoiler alert, they didn't. And my favorite comments were always about the economy. Ah, the economy. Something that's so difficult to get right in Mario Party, yet we expect the real world to have a grip on it. For those of you who don't know, the stars in Super cost only 10 coins, which in most cases is half the cost of what a star is supposed to be in Mario Party. Oh, but that's okay because the dice roll caps off at 6, not including the personal dice, but we'll get to that later. And the boards are smaller, the items are cheaper, everything is just a little bit less of a Mario Party. So it cancels out, right? Well, not exactly. See, the game I can compare this to most was Mario Party DS. Everything was legitimately shrunk down so it would work on a handheld, but the game didn't really feel easier, whereas Super Mario Party actually feels easier to play. And this is because that although they did limit a lot of the in-game cash flow to make it shrink, they forgot to limit how rich everyone was. Like, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the only semi-significant limitation they made when receiving coins was starting off everyone with 5 coins instead of 10. Once you play a few rounds, the issues start to surface. You start with 5 coins, you land on 2 blue spaces, and now you have 11 coins, which means that assuming nothing else happens, which is often not the case, by turn 3 you have enough coins to buy a star. Generally, however, something else occurs, and allows you to buy a star sooner. Win a minigame and you receive 8 coins. I guess they figured 10 coins was too much since the star cost 10 coins. It's something, but definitely not enough of a limitation. They subtracted 10 coins from the cost of the star, but only 2 coins from your reward from winning a minigame. Oh yeah, and just for extra measure, they also awarded 2nd and 3rd place 4 and 2 coins respectively. What this all boils down to is the inevitability that by the 2nd turn of the game, usually 3 or 4 players can already afford the star, and given how shrunken down the size of the boards are, it's not uncommon to reach the star by the 2nd or 3rd turn. All of these decisions, and then a few more I'll cover shortly, speed up the game drastically, and as a result the recommended playtime for this title is 10 turns. In those 10 turns, most players would have seen the whole board 2 or more times and purchased a bunch of stars already. I've heard many people make the argument that Super Mario Party is completely luck-based, and I gotta say, I wholeheartedly disagree. It's not any more luck-based than any other Mario Party title. These games thrive on the luck-skill-strategy balance, and they all have varying elements of luck. I think people give this game the wrong criticism though. It's not the luck that's the issue, it's the difficulty, or lack thereof, that I find the biggest issue with this game. You see, using strategy in previous Mario Party games took at least some brain power. You'd zoom out, view the map, analyze the routes you could take, who you would pass, what kind of plays you can make, etc. I noticed while playing older titles, if there was someone young or an amateur gamer playing, we would often find ourselves helping them out during their turn. We'd suggest which route they should take, or tell them who they should steal coins from and whatnot. In Super Mario Party, we didn't need to do that. They knew what plays to make. They knew to head to the store to buy the golden pipe, or which player to use an item on because it's a lot more obvious in this game. The boards were simplified to the point that it became extremely easy to strategize. So as a result, everyone started viewing this game as a Mario Party title that steers too hard into luck because if everyone is able to strategize equally, then it all comes down to the dice rolls. And if 4-player minigames are rewarding 8, 4, 2, and 0 coins, then being more skilled in minigames won't even give you that big of an advantage when it comes to collecting these low-priced stars. And the advantage is broken down even more when you consider the bonus stars. There are a total of 9 potential bonus stars, and the game only picks 2 to hand out in a typical 10-turn game. Minigame, Rich, Event, Item, Sightseer, Slowpoke, Unlucky, Ally, and Buddy. Honestly, this is by far the weakest bonus star system in the series in my opinion. Minigame, Rich, Event, Item, and Unlucky I can get with. The Unlucky star is basically for landing on red spaces or unlucky spaces, which are the equivalent of Bowser spaces in this game. Those 5 options are fairly common bonus star options that have been around before and allow for some form of strategy or skill. Sightseer and Slowpoke are for who traveled the most and least, and are way too dependent on luck for my liking. The only thing I can think of that might defend them is the use of personal dice blocks, but it's hardly a strategy worth undertaking when you consider there's only a 22% chance of each bonus star showing up, whereas in the past titles they had a 50% chance. So basically the Slowpoke and the Sightseer star are usually never planned for and just kinda happen. The Ally bonus star I can kind of understand, but it's just another space on the board to go for and you're already rewarded for landing on one. Basically during this game you can collect allies which gives you access to more personal dice blocks and an extra 1 or 2 spaces each roll, as well as help in some of the minigames. I'll discuss allies more later. The Buddy star is probably my least favorite bonus star though. Basically it's rewarded for having a certain ally. In one of the games I literally got a bonus star because I had Hammer Bros as an ally, which I thought was pretty lame. Anyway, this is the only Mario Party game that I play through where I legitimately don't think about what the bonus stars are at all. Considering each one is only a 2 out of 9 chance of showing up, it's much better focused on what's happening on the board, which kinda stinks. When it comes to the bonus stars, I can definitely see why people argue this game is all luck based, but it's only one aspect of the game. The spaces on the board are pretty straightforward and serve the same purposes they pretty much always have. Blue and red spaces stick to providing 3 and taking away 3 coins, until the last 5 turns where they're worth double. Event spaces are your basic happening spaces that cause something to occur. VS spaces are battle minigame spaces. Item spaces give you a random item. Lucky spaces award you with random items or coins. Bad luck spaces and extra bad luck spaces are spaces that punish the player. The blue and red spaces really should have been nerfed in my opinion due to the in-game economy, but otherwise I have no issues with them. I like the inclusion of the item spaces instead of the floating items that everyone receives when they pass by, because now you're not guaranteed to receive an item unless you land on the space, which I think is very important for this title because it's already way too easy to receive everything. Lucky spaces are probably overkill though. I don't really see why they needed to be included in an already easy game. Usually once a game someone will receive 3 golden mushrooms or something, which is insane considering each game is only 10 turns long. Bad luck spaces are cool. I do wish they'd punish the players more. Usually just a slap on the wrist that'll make the player lose 5 to 10 coins and often give the coins to the other players. It can also cause the star to move, which I think is a nice result, but my favorite is that it can also double the price of the star for the next time a player tries to purchase one. That specific result has just the right amount of mayhem to make me smile. In the last 3 turns, the bad luck spaces become extra bad luck spaces, and I really wish the extra bad luck space roulette was around all game because the punishments are more fitting. You can lose 20 coins or give 10 coins to all other players, lose half of your coins, even lose a star or give a star to the player in last place. It's much more fitting for a Bowser-esque space, and while I'm glad it's included in the last 3 turns, I really wish it was around all game because it'd balance out the board play a bit more in my opinion. The final difference in the last 3 turns, by the way, the game predicts who will win, often, but not always the player in last, and give them an item. I think it's absolutely ridiculous when the player receives a golden pipe or a hidden block card because of course they're going to be significantly more likely to win if you're setting them up for a star. I much prefer giving them mushrooms or coins, but I digress. The boards also include an item shop or 2, and the return of the space that allows you to steal coins or a star. You can steal coins for free or steal a star for 30 coins. I'm a big fan of this return. I do miss when Boo used to host the steal space, but he's a playable character so I guess there will be a conflict of interest. I like that when you steal coins, it's on average around 10 coins. In this case they did a good job limiting the coin movement, and 30 coins to steal a star is a good price. Plus, in a couple of boards it's fairly easy to get to, so you can actually make a strategy out of stealing stars if you're doing well collecting coins. And let's be honest, you probably are since this is Super Mario Party. The item shops in the game are also super easy to come by. And like I mentioned earlier, this results in making the game super easy to strategize because they always sell the same thing and everyone will eventually collect golden pipes during the game. Also, to no surprise, the items are really cheap. 3 coins to buy a mushroom to add 3 spaces to your roll, or 5 coins for a golden mushroom to add 5 spaces. I'm not sure what the price per space should be in these instances, but I definitely feel like it should be more than 1 coin per space. You can also buy a poison mushroom to -2 from opponent's roll, use a coin NATO, steal 5 to 10 coins from another player, so basically you're paying 5 coins to make your money back or gain up to 5 coins, but you'll force someone else to lose coins too. An ally phone summons an ally for you, a custom dice block allows you to choose your roll, a Fly Guy ticket steals a random item from a rival player of your choice, a hidden block card summons a hidden block. Oh yeah, hidden blocks return in this game and either give you 10 coins or a star. It's totally random what they'll give you, and you have no control over the dial, so you'll be tricked into thinking you can time it. I can't say for certain, but I'm pretty sure you only get a star from a hidden block later in the game, so it might be worth holding onto a hidden block until the last few turns. At the end of the day, when you go to the shop, you're usually going to buy a mushroom or a golden pipe to take you straight to the star. The rest of the items are usually used when you land on an item space and earn one randomly. I like the older games that had different items available depending on how late in the game it was, because it felt like it gave an element of luck and forced you to learn to strategize with different items instead of everyone just trying to buy a golden pipe for only 10 coins. Yeah, 10 coins. Definitely overpowered and underpriced. I've mentioned allies and personal dice quite a bit, so I'm going to briefly cover those. I don't want to go too in-depth because it's been done to death, and you can find mathematically backed tier lists that tell you which characters are statistically better to use if your ultimate goal is to be able to move around the board as much as possible. Basically, every player has a 1 to 6 dice and a personal dice. And I could be wrong, but don't be fooled into thinking you can time the dice roll. I am pretty sure that theory was debugged. The personal dice vary from having minimal benefit, like removing numbers 2 and 4 from the dice and switching it to 1, 3 3s, and a 5 and a 6, to having a large variance like giving you 2 zeros in your dice and raising the highest option to anywhere between 7 and 10. Sometimes the zeros also add or subtract coins too. But because cash flow in this game is wild, I think they're better viewed as zeros and not really plus or minus coin rules. For some characters, like Donkey Kong, there's a high risk reward factor because you can roll a 10 and move around a bunch, but you can also get unlucky 5 turns in a row and stay in the same space. Other characters like Shy Guy and Daisy give you a bunch of 3s and 4s so you can comfortably roll knowing exactly how much you'll move. I think it's all a matter of opinion. I'm pretty sure it's mathematically proven that Bowser has the best dice, but everyone can always use the regular 1 to 6 dice block. In my circle of friends, everyone just sticks to their favorite characters, but I'm sure there are people out there who take this way more seriously than us. It honestly works in my favor though, because with Wario, I have a 2/3 chance of rolling a 6, and those are great odds. Anyway, when you land on an ally space, one of the playable characters that's not currently selected joins you and you have access to their personal dice block. There's a roulette wheel that's pretty difficult to time, but I found that hitting the A button 2 or 3 spaces before the character you want will get you close. But like I said, it's too hard to guarantee anything. The ally will also always add 1 or 2 to all your dice rolls. In some games I've found myself with 3 or 4 allies, which means that every roll I make will guarantee I move at least 3 or 4 spaces, and nothing less. Allies are the ultimate risk remover for players with high dice roll options because they can comfortably roll without worrying about getting a 0. I'm torn on both of these fronts. On one hand, I think the personal dice blocks add a lot of character to the game and an ounce of much needed strategy. On the other hand, I feel like the dice blocks could have been more properly balanced. That being said, I think if someone feels super strong about it, they could play around with different types of dice blocks and find a strategy that suits them. Or heck, just pick Bowser, Wario, or Boo, or one of the other sought after characters in the tier lists. I'd like if there was an option to turn off personal dice blocks, but I think they do a better job adding more to the game than they do ruining it. Likewise with the allies. I'm not against their implementation, but I do have an issue with the fact that each ally guarantees another space or 2 added to every roll. It becomes way too overpowered when a player lands on 2 or 3 ally spaces early on in the game. I also don't like that you're forced to use them, so you basically will never roll a 1 or a 2 for the remainder of the game if there's a space close by you want to land on. I think the issues with them can be fixed by either having the option to turn them off along with the personal dice, or better yet, instead of guaranteeing 1 or 2 spaces for you per ally, make them roll a -1, 0, or +1 dice, and make it optional whether or not you want to take a chance and use one. Or something along those lines. Again, I think these allies provide more for the game than they take away from it, but it's something I definitely feel should be refined. I will say that when I played Superstars, I missed the personal dice blocks and the allies, so that should say something about them. And oh yeah, there are like a million characters to choose from in this game, which I love. Not only because it adds a lot more customization, but also because it legitimately feels like a party in the Mario universe, especially with all the extra NPCs. It really feels like everyone's here. With all that out of the way, I think it's time to discuss the boards. Of which there are only 4, which quite frankly is embarrassing. I don't know how NDCube thought it was a good idea to only include 4 boards. It's not even like they're super complex in-depth boards. They're small, basically grid-based, and leave a lot to be desired. You'd find better board design in Mario Party 4's platforms. So it boggles my mind that you couldn't make another 2 or 3 more boards if this was the style they're going for. Don't get me wrong, I think these boards can lead to a good time, and they're not a complete failure, but given their size and design, they're easy to get bored of pretty quick. And in a 10-turn game, the actual quantity of the spaces isn't even that bad. Like, sure, the average is a bit low and offset by the smaller dice blocks, but that offset gets thrown completely out the window with a lot of the personal dice blocks and even more out the window when the allies start coming into play. And besides, the actual placement of certain spaces and routes creates locations on the board that maybe only one person will visit during a 10-round game, so it makes the game board feel a lot smaller when you're traversing it. Honestly, the least they could have done was design a board in a manner that makes you feel like you're actually exploring an area like they did in the older games, instead of every board just feeling like a box that was slightly rearranged with different hazards and routes. Take the first board for instance, Womp's Domino Ruins. It's almost identical to DK's Jungle Ruins in Mario Party 1, and a really good board to get your feet wet in. There are Womps you can pay to pass at certain junctions. They work the same as DK's Jungle Ruins in that paying them or landing on a happening space will cause them to block the other route in a junction. There's happening spaces that'll chase you back to a certain point, and even an option to steal a star. The problem is when you actually break the board down, it feels so much smaller than it actually is. The first area includes a loop that's only used to pass by an item shop that really only allows you to buy a dash mushroom. So why would you waste 2 or 3 turns to get an item that you have to spend money on that allows you to move less than what you would have moved if you didn't take the route to the shop in the first place? The only benefit to this loop I can think of is punishing players that can't afford to pass by Womp yet. But your coin count is so high that it's extremely rare that a player is ever going to be forced on this route. So right away there's 4 spaces lost to the board count. The next area makes you think there's a junction, but really more of a detour, and an unexciting one at that. Like sure, you can pay money to move to another player's location on one of the routes, but that route also is a 2-space shortcut, so it's clearly the better route to take. The only reason not to take it is if you're guaranteed to land on a bad luck space, and given the weak punishments that might still be worth it if you're closer to the star. Again, it's basically a pointless junction. Moving along the back of the board is a bit more fun because you'll need to dodge the happening spaces that'll chase you back to the top right corner, an often used gimmick in older Mario Party titles. The left half of the board does get a bit more exciting too because there are more star locations that make the minor junctions a bit more relevant. And more exciting things like passing by Lakitu to steal coins or a star, or getting to the item shop to buy an item of your choice, which is generally the golden pipe. One of the biggest issues on this board, and really on this game in general, the star spaces are all way too close to one another, and that's largely to do with the board design issues that I described above. It's way too common to get 2 or 3 stars in one turn. In fact, I don't think I've played a 10-game turn of Mario Party on any of the first 3 boards without it happening at least once. It's a result of smaller boards, shorter routes, fewer blue spaces, which means more likelihood to land on a hidden block, stars being so cheap and players earning coins way too easily. Again, this game is just way too easy, and this board is the easiest one in the game. It can be fun, you just gotta know what you're getting into. The next board, King Bob-omb's Powder Keg Mine, is a lot more enjoyable of a board in my opinion. It's not as traditional as Womp's Domino Ruins, but it's still a star hunting board, albeit with a decent gimmick. The center of the board holds King Bob-omb with a square of spaces around him, some of which contain event spaces. If you land on those spaces, it'll make a countdown drop down from 5 to 4, and so on. When the number reaches 0, King Bob-omb will explode, causing all the players in the square to lose half of their coins. I like this gimmick, but I'll admit, I wish it'd make players lose all of their coins, since it feels like the half coin punishment isn't nearly as harsh given how the game plays out. The board layout works for me because you have a bit more control over which area you'd like to go in, various options of where you'd like to move around. Players can end up in totally different areas of the board and still be at advantage or disadvantage depending on how the game goes. Really, the only problem I have with this board layout in general is the same issue where you can easily get 2 stars in one turn more often than you should be able to. So basically, by Super Mario Party standards, this is a really good board, but when you consider all the flaws that are in the actual game mechanics, it makes it a bit less enjoyable, and once again, way too easy. Megafruit Paradise is way too similar to Wario's Battle Canyon in Mario Party 1. There have been boards throughout the series that provided you with the 4 island locations that allow you to travel between them with relative ease, and those types of boards work in my opinion. In this case, there's too much of a sense of randomness that locks you out from the different parts of the board, and they rely way too heavily on landing on an event space to move you. The 4 islands are unique enough. The top right one provides you with a happening space that will award a star to the second player to land on it. The top left island gives you a chance to get an award or punishment by choosing the correct box. The award will be Lakitu to allow you to steal a star from a player, or Paratroopa to allow you a chance to move to another player's location. And the punishment will be a Piranha Plant that steals some of your coins. The bottom left island has a shop that stops working after it's used a number of times, limiting how many items can actually be purchased there throughout the game. Honestly, I've barely seen them run out during a 10-turn game. The lower bridge on the board will crumble and fall apart after crossed a few times, and then be unusable for the rest of the game, which further restricts the movement. Also, if you happen to be the player that causes the bridge to collapse, you only get a minor 5-coin punishment. The bridge on the top of the board has an OG gimmick that involves being sent back to the start if you land on the event space. Honestly, it's hard to get the style of board right in a better designed Mario Party title, so the shortcomings here stick out even worse. In this case, the board is actually slightly more tolerable because of how easy the game is, but it still has way too much of an element of a lack of control for my liking. This board is just not my style, and similar to when this style shows up in the other games, I wouldn't play this board. Kamiks' Tantalizing Tower for me is similar to King Bob-omb's Powder Keg in that the issues I have with this board are a result of the game as a whole and not necessarily the specific board. Linear boards aren't bad strictly because they're linear. It's all about how to add strategy to these boards to make them more exciting. In this case, you can buy 2 stars at a time whenever you reach the end of the board, or 3 stars during the last 3 turns event. And in addition to that, the stars change price every time they're purchased, or if a player lands on the event space prior to the star. And the price change seems to be random between 5, 10, and 15 coins, with the only rule being that it can't be the same price twice in a row. This has a nice bit of strategy that allows you to figure out how quickly you should try and get to the star and when to use dash or poison items to speed yourself up or slow down opponents. Especially in the last 5 turns where you could buy 3 stars for 15 coins or 1 star for 15 coins. It's the old stall and blitz gimmick that I've always loved, only instead of detours there will be various routes that allow you to take shortcuts if you're trying to blitz or to take a long way if you're trying to stall or would rather buy an item. One of the shortcuts even brings back Thwomp, who charges you whatever the previous player paid plus 1 coin. Ah, the nostalgia. There are happening spaces around the board that can move you closer up the board, and one of them will take you to a secret corner that you can steal coins or a star from using Lakitu. The item shops are dumbed down big time. In the regular shop you can buy mushrooms or a coinado, and it's basically a standard shop with standard prices. No golden pipe on this board, which makes sense given the layout. The second shop is a bit more enticing. It forces you to pay 6 coins and purchase a dash mushroom, poison mushroom, or custom dice block. The catch is that each item will only be sold once until all 3 items are sold, and then they'll restock again. It's always best to pass the shop when the custom dice block is available, since you're going to be forced to purchase whatever there is for 6 coins regardless. For some weird reason that quite frankly NDCube is notorious for, they decided this board should have the blue and red spaces be worth double all game. So if there was a chance you'd get to the star at the end and not be able to afford it, it's even less likely now. Big mistake in my opinion, but in line with this game I guess. I like this board enough, along with the Bob-ombs. I can tolerate Womp's board too if I wanted to fill my generic board. But I definitely skipped the fruit board. It's just amazing to me that NDCube thought 4 boards were enough. None of their games had this few boards. It's pretty clear however they did this because they added a bunch of side modes, but come on, even with the side modes you'd think they'd have at least thrown in another board or 2, especially given how basic the design is. The only potentially saving grace I can think of is people that enjoy partner party and regular board play, because then they kind of have 8 different board options, but I don't think it's unique enough to view it that way. I don't know, this game bugs me in a lot of ways because I feel like it could have been so much better if it just did a few things differently. I mean, for goodness sake, I love the minigames. The motion control minigames are on par and in some cases better than the ones from the previous titles. The button control minigames that involve movement are actually better to control because everyone has a joystick instead of a remote D-pad. And honestly, any minigame that implements HD Rumble is a win in my book. If I'm not mistaken, none of them involve actual luck in the way Bowser's Big Blast did. There are some that have luck elements, but none that are fully luck based. Well, I guess except for Maths of Glory, but that's a 2v2 minigame and you're only playing one of those like every other game anyway. I personally consider the 1v3 minigames balanced. I've never gone into one of them thinking I can't win because I'm the 1 or the 3, and I think that's a good enough sign of how balanced they are. Which reminds me, anytime you're on a team and you win a minigame, you're awarded 2 extra coins for high-fiving after winning. It's super annoying in my opinion. The players don't really need the extra coins, but it does lead to some fun showboating moments with your friends if you're a fan of being obnoxious. A handful of minigames allow you to involve your allies for a slight advantage. The only thing that this really does for me though is remind me that they had a console that could run 8 players and still kept this game off at 4. And oh yeah, they did that again with Superstars. Guys, I think I'm starting to hate NDCube. There are some fun 4-player co-op minigames and rhythm-based minigames, but those aren't included in the main game. It would have been nice if they found a way to implement them, but they're worth playing every now and then. Also, remember how in older Mario Party titles, specifically Mario Party 2, every board had its own dual minigame, and it wasn't even really a minigame, more like a small competitive head-to-head microgame that took place on the board? A practice they fixed in almost every other future installment by creating dual minigames, or better yet, skinning 4-player minigames to 1v1 minigames for dual purposes. Anyway, Super Mario Party implemented a similar system to the battle minigames, except even more tame and not really board specific. This game hosts a grand total of 3 battle minigames that are triggered by landing on a VS space. A roulette wheel will determine what the players will wager between 5 and 30 coins, generally more coins being available later in the game. 4th place still gets 0, but the winner only gets 60% of the coins, which I think is about 10 or 15% too low. Anyway, these big epic battle minigames that would usually give you some amazingly memorable moments, especially if they triggered a luck-based minigame, were stripped down to a game show-esque button pressing minigame. Press A when you feel the strongest rumble. Press A when you feel the rumble. Or hold A to inflate the largest balloon, and if it pops, you lose. I'm not against these gimmicks in general. They could be used for a minigame or even a board event that rewards an item or something. But as a battle minigame, these are extremely underwhelming. Especially in the late stages of the game where timing of the pressing A can determine whether you win 60 coins or 0. As per usual, my critiques on the minigames for this title are a result of the way the game is played rather than the design itself. All of that being said, I love this minigame package. And I especially love that you can practice every minigame on the screen before going into the game. It speeds things up so much better and makes sure that no minigame started until everyone's ready. The Joy-Cons took everything I loved about the Wiimotes for Mario Party and made them way better. It might bug a lot of people that they can't use a Pro Controller or play handheld mode, but I totally understand why they did it. A nice middle ground would be an option to play with only button control minigames, but honestly, Anycube would probably remove a board if they wanted to implement that, so I'm glad they stuck with the simplicity. That's really all there is about this game. Simplicity. They went back to tried and true Mario Party formula, but they made it as simple as they possibly could. Everything about it on paper looks and plays like a traditional Mario Party title, and that's because it is a traditional Mario Party title. But for many fans, it's nothing more than a step in the right direction. I said I would try not to talk too much about Superstars, but I'm so relieved that game came out because I think it highlighted to fans of Super a lot more what it was that people were criticizing. The game is ultimately just too easy. It's funny, I recently saw someone make an argument that they preferred Super because they felt that you could strategize way more in Super than you could in Superstars or the older games, and that those games were a lot more luck-based. I thought they were either crazy or trolling. It made no sense to me. But playing this game for this retrospective, I think I kind of understand what the person was trying to say. I might sit here and criticize the game for streamlining routes or offering affordable golden pipes or making the game to me feel like it's too easy to get what you want. But I think there's a subset of the fanbase that views all that as strategy. And not because they're noobs or because they're not good at Mario Party or whatever. I think it's more because the strategy in Super is a lot more in your face and everyone is essentially on an even playing field when it comes to strategizing, because it's not like this game is just easier for one or two people. It's easier for everybody. I can see it when I play with my group of friends and family. None of us feel like this game is any less of a party game than other titles because we're all pretty good at every game we play. So yeah, it might be easy for me to get 2 stars in one turn, and come back and find another way to screw over someone else, but they're all going to do it right back to me. And we're going to pick the characters with the dice box that we like in order to compete, and buy the right items, and turn against one another in minigames. What it comes down to is that for every 1 or 2 strategic moves you can make in Super, there would have been 5 or 6 you could make in the Hudson Soft games. Those games can appear to be luck based on paper because you're a lot more likely to get stuck on the wrong spot of a giant board because of a weak roll, but it only takes 1 or 2 turns to figure out where you need to go after your stint of bad luck. Luck is always a part of Mario Party, whether it's good or bad. The trick is to figure out how to strategize to work with your luck on any given turn. A 20-turn game on the classic titles generally takes an hour to an hour and a half, but doubling the size of the boards and the turn count is so much more worth it because it allows every player to actually figure out their strategy, rather than have it be laid out for them. When it all comes down to it, however, I lean towards Super Mario Party being a good game that's just not that good of a Mario Party game. I can see reasons to play it, mainly because it's on a current-gen console and a plethora of characters makes it a treat to run through, but in a few years when this game is as old as the GameCube titles, I won't be playing it nearly as much. There are better Mario Party experiences. The only benefit to this game is its really good option to play with kids, and honestly, that might be why I end up playing this game in the future, which ultimately comes to my ranking. I'd rather play this game over Mario Party 8 and 4, so I know it's not that low on the list, and I think the fact that it's a console title means I'd prefer it over DS as well. But I know for a fact I'd rather play 1 and 3 instead of Super, so I think that's where I'll have to place it. As a reminder, my ranking has 2 and 7 in first, 5 in second, 6, 9, and 10 in third, 1 and 3 in fourth, and now Super in fifth, DS in sixth, and 4 and 8 in last. It's really weird to me because before I started this series, I legitimately looked back at 2, 8, and Super as my favorite titles, and now 8 and Super are lower than I ever expected they would be. I think that proves how enjoyable Mario Party titles are. When 8 came out on the Wii and Super came out on Switch, everyone was getting together to play them because everyone had these titles, and despite the fact that they're some of the weaker Mario Party titles, I had a blast with both of them when they launched. I love Mario Party. So many good memories with this series, and I'm so excited to create even more memories. I was ecstatic when Super was announced, and even more excited when Superstars was announced. I'm looking forward to covering that game in my next video because that is going to be a much more positive review. I haven't fully decided where Superstars lies in my rankings, but I know it'll be higher than Super. Anyway, I'm trying to stay consistent with these videos, so I'm going to get right to Superstars. You can support me with a like and especially subscribe. Or if you're feeling extra generous, you can sponsor the cup of coffee I'm about to grab before working on Superstars by visiting the Patreon link in the description. Hit the notification bell to be kept in the loop. Thanks for watching. Dean out.